engaging citizens on the go, delivering safety and satisfaction in a mobile world. I'm James Baker with the Public Sector Technology Exchange, and I want to thank you for joining us from all around the country. The Public Sector Technology Exchange is an independent forum that discusses the technology challenges impacting government, industry, and the citizen. To learn more about us, visit us on the web or in your favorite social media venue. Before we get started with today's webinar, there are a few items I want to go over. Today's event is going to be recorded, and I'll send everyone who's listening in today an on-demand link that you can share with your colleagues. Kindly mute any phones or computers. Your questions are welcomed. We have the audience attending today is from federal, state, local government, as well as private industry from all over America. We've had over 50 questions come in through registration. You can also use the dashboard on your screen to input a question. At the end of today's event, I'm going to kindly ask you to take a few minutes to fill out the survey. A lot of details and planning go into an event like this, and your feedback is vital to us here at the Public Sector Technology Exchange. I also want to give special thanks to our event sponsor, Avaya. We have an amazing lineup of panelists joining us today from around the country. I'm going to ask each of the gentlemen to introduce themselves. We'll begin with Tony. Tony, if you could just share with our audience a little bit about what you do in the state of Montana.
Thank you, James. My name is Tony Etherington. I'm a project manager and business analyst with the Montana Department of Transportation. And my job is to work with the business as well as IT to document what we're doing and what we want to do to make sure that the change, whether it's a technology change or a process change, is bringing benefit to the business. Many times we start off on endeavors of something that looks good, but we don't really look at how to apply it. So I spend a lot of time with the business in making sure what we do brings value. That's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Greg.
Great. So my name is Greg Weber. I work for Avaya. And through my stint with Avaya over the last 16 years, I've done virtually every role you can imagine, from technical development to architecture, support, sales, and the like. I'm currently in the CTO organization, and I have a charter to help kind of evangelize, talk about what Avaya is doing out in the world in helping companies evolve digitally. We call it digital transformation, move from kind of where people are at to how to kind of work in today's new world, and we'll be sharing a lot of that stuff today.
Thank you, Greg. John.
Hello, my name is John Spence. I'm the Deputy Director of IT and Security for the Liquor Division for the state of Idaho. Basically, by the title you can tell, I run the IT operations as well as the physical security for our distribution center and our 66 state stores, providing spirit alcohol, beverage alcohol to the citizens of Idaho. That's about it.
Thank you, John. Stu, could you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, James. This is Stu Davis. I'm the State Chief Information Officer for the state of Ohio, and I lead and oversee and direct the state agency activities related to information technology development and use for the state of Ohio. I'm currently serving as the National Association of State CIOs President. So all the things that we're dealing with in Ohio are really around a major initiative called IT optimization for the state, where we're looking at more enterprise shared solutions as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Before we turn things over to our event sponsor for a moment, I'd like to hear from you, the audience. I imagine if we took a poll today of how many of us reached for our mobile devices within the first 30 minutes before getting up, I would say most of us did it before we even got a cup of coffee. And what I'd like to hear from you right now, and we're going to put a poll up on the screen, if you could just take a moment to answer it, is what are the biggest challenges facing your organization as it relates to mobile and the citizen? And if you could just take a moment, let us know, is it collaboration, mobile, workforce training, unified communication, or the shortest path bridge? Kindly just take a moment. I see a handful of you are voting. I appreciate that. We're getting a lot of answers in. wow, it's quite interesting. I'm watching all the polls come in right now. A lot of people, hosted services and collaboration is the #1 answer on this, followed up by mobile and unified communications. That's really good. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now, so just take another moment if you want to answer it. I think by and large, we're seeing a lot of people with hosted services and collaboration. I now want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, Avaya, Engage the Power of We. Greg, could you just share with us briefly about who Avaya is and what you do with government? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for doing this seminar. This is a great venue. In case people haven't heard of Avaya, I hope everyone has, but in case you haven't, we are a company that delivers 21st century business collaboration solutions to the largest companies, largest organizations, down to mid-sized business and smallest businesses in the world. And I think we've been through quite a few different evolutions of this, right? There's been communication, and then there's been collaboration, and then there's been UC. And we kind of break those things back into kind of two things. One is what we call team engagement, and one is what we call customer engagement. Team engagement is all about how do we bring employees together in our organizations in a very engaging way. I think we've become very, very overwhelmed with a lot of the technology that's out there. How do we consume it, and then how do we make that so our knowledge workers can make really great line of business decisions? From a customer engagement point of view, businesses and organizations typically interface with their customers either through a physical presence or maybe a 1-800 number. We now know that we're interfacing with our customers in many, many, many different ways, from kiosks and websites and social media, mobile devices. The list goes on and on and on. And this fits into what we call our customer engagement solutions. So how do we deliver this engagement to organizations? As I just mentioned, we have team engagement, customer engagement solutions, but we have all the surrounding solutions that kind of make this happen, help you evolve to it. Number one, we have a very, very strong fabric networking solution that enables the new demands that we're putting onto the system to actually respond to it, to actually deliver that in a rapid embrace model. And obviously, Avaya doesn't believe that we're doing all of this stuff ourselves. There's a tremendous amount of partners, there's other third-party applications, other business applications, and we provide a very extensible framework that allows these to migrate in and really impact on how your organizations deliver engagement.
Thank you, Greg, for that insight. And again, special thanks to our sponsor, Avaya, for making today's event possible. Now, this is the part of the forum where I'm going to interview each of the panelists. I have a few questions I'd like to ask them, and then we'll have a time where we open it up to you, the audience. You can use your dashboard to submit questions to us. Tony, my first question for you is, how is your organization currently engaging the mobile citizen during the harsh winters in Montana?
Well, this first thing we've developed a traveler website which contains maps of current road conditions and weather conditions. And what it allows for before traveling, people can go to the website and look at the conditions to make decisions on travel. If roads look like what they do on the slide, they may want to leave early or leave later when the road's clear. Other information on the site includes roadside cameras, various passes in Montana. We have cameras and road and weather information systems on the roadbed. So we collect data about the temperature of the road, moisture conditions, wind speeds, information that will help know what the condition is on that pass. This site is probably, well, it actually is the busiest site in the state of Montana, website government. It has over 9.5 million visitors a year.
Oh, wow, that's a huge number.
It is a very large number. It makes up 80% of our web traffic. So people are constantly there looking at what is on the road to make decisions for travel. In 2014, we developed a mobile app that is tied to the traveler website and puts conditions on your mobile device. That application now, we've had over 46,000 downloads in the last 2 years of people using that to help them with their travel decisions. We also have a 511 system which is automated, tied to the same reporting. So we collect data on the road conditions and we report it to the website, to the mobile app, and to the phone system so people can call in to get current road conditions. And currently, what we're working on from the business standpoint of things is looking at how we're collecting the data on the road and reporting it to try to develop best practices so that we can improve. Because it's important to get the right road conditions out there as soon as possible. And that's not always easy with weather changing the way it does. So we're looking at what other states are doing to assist in reporting weather and road conditions, as well as what we're doing across the state to try to develop some best practices and look at some technologies to improve.
Thanks, Tony. I have a couple more questions for you. It's fascinating what you do as a business analyst and looking at all the different things that go with MDT. One of the questions I have for you is, I know building roads and bridges is it's really no small undertaking. I mean, it involves many people, high levels of management, resources, and planning, and sometimes what's holding up production of expanding roads or getting work done is a simple signature. Could you share with our audience how you would like to leverage mobile technology to help your organization better collaborate?
Certainly. One of the things we're currently looking at is anytime you build a road or expand a road, you need to purchase land from landowners around that road called the right-of-way. It's the piece of the road that we own. To do that, you have to negotiate with them, and once you come to an agreement, you have to get that agreement signed, and then it goes through a process of approval before you purchase the land. And today, with a paper world, you finish your negotiations, you go back to the office, print that agreement, mail it out to the landowner, they sign it, they mail it back. That can take 2 to 3, 4 weeks. We're looking at how we can leverage mobile technology to allow the agents that are negotiating to be sitting in the office or the house of the landowner, come to an agreement, finish that agreement on that mobile device, turn that device around and hand them a stylus pen and have them sign the agreement right there. That way then we're not spending 2 weeks waiting for it to come back. It's captured on the spot. The agreement then can be emailed right there to them, and etc., so that we can cut that process of that time down and make it more efficient.
Thank you for that answer. And I love the picture on this next slide. I at some point would love to do an entire PST series on logistics, trucks, and data. But one of the things that I find fascinating is that a lot of your trucks gather data. And as you look into the future, how do you see filtering and improving data collection from your work vehicles?
That's a good question. What you're looking at on that picture is actually a photo of the inside of a current snowplow truck. You saw that plow on the first screen. This is the inside of one of those trucks, and this is what the driver sees. And this information, this computer system is collecting data about road conditions, when the plow is used and where it's used, if you put sand or de-icer on the road, when and where and how much. This data can be collected to help MDT management make decisions on where our worst roads are, where are we using most of our materials on the roadways in the winter, where we're using the plow the most often, to help with decisions on budgets, decisions on supplies, and etc. But the information can also be used by the traveling public. There's cameras on these vehicles taking pictures of the roadway as it's traveling, so you can literally on a map click on the picture and see what the road looks like at that location. It's all great information, but it's overwhelming information. So we're working on how we can filter that data and publish it so that the right data is in the right hands at the right time. Looking at a picture that's 4 hours old would not help somebody traveling on that road. So, you know, that has to be done on the right amount of time.
Tony, I have one last question for you, and I thank you for sharing these excellent pictures. And, you know, it's been said, a picture says 1,000 words, and as I look at this natural disaster here in your state, government throughout the nation deals with, you know, natural and man-made disasters, and being a major concern, Can you share with us how MDT is engaging citizens in the event of a disaster?
Our most important high priority is keeping them informed. We're engaging them by trying to make sure we publish information about disasters, when, where, location, especially if they impact the traveling public, which what you would see on your screen definitely would impact. But it's keeping them informed. We're also working on with other agencies to develop continuity of operations plans so that in the event of a larger scale disaster, we can know what we need to, what function to bring up first to ensure that the traveling public is as impacted as minimal as possible on the traveling public. Communication and the right information is what's the most important thing for us.
Thank you, Tony. Next, we're going to go over to Greg Weber with Avaya. Greg, I have a few questions for you. One of the first things I wanted to ask you, Greg, is everyone realizes there's a transformation going on right now throughout government where the citizen is engaging government through smartphones and tablets. The latest research reports I've read have said that 55% of all citizens are accessing their information from government through a mobile phone or a tablet. Can you share with our audience today, what do you think holds organizations back from undergoing this digital transformation?
Absolutely. So first let me just start off, one of the great things here is this is definitely not unique to government here. A lot of the commercial companies are dealing with exactly the same problems to answer your question. I really believe that the inhibitors to digital transformation kind of manifest itself in 4 different ways that all need to be solved and navigated. The first thing is the culture, the internal culture of your knowledge workers and the like. If you look at how a lot of organizations have kind of evolved, they've been driven for kind of operational excellence. Like, here is what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to keep optimizing continuously to reach that goal. And everyone's incented in every way, shape, or form to drive for that. However, to really get to digital transformation, people need to be inspired for what is kind of this, how do you redefine establishment? It doesn't mean you're just going to throw out everything. It doesn't mean, oh, here's a great idea, we're just going to do it. But it's exploring those, having the long-term goals in mind, and being able to kind of challenge going, are we going in the right direction? If we can do something a little bit differently, they need to be incented to be able to explore that so those things can be kind of evaluated. The second area is kind of how customer or citizen engagement is done here. The first of all is most engagement is typically thought of kind of restricted by kind of that affordability mindset. How do I drive costs out? As opposed to kind of transforming into kind of that signature experience. I thought there were some great examples from the state of Montana, the real-time traffic information or how the information about certain situations will affect their citizens in getting there. That's not a cost play in the natural sense as I'm going to drive down the cost of my interactions, but it's about improving citizen experience, citizen satisfaction, and in the long run, you can look at different types of cost models to justify that. From a business standpoint, business process standpoint, typically a lot of organizations are very inhibited by kind of rigid technology. The thing is, oh, this is the technology I have, this is the only thing that I can do, and that's, you tend to break business processes or not take advantage of the technology in that case. To do true digital transformation, adaptable technology needs to be in there. New technologies have to come in, and it has to be about the technology adapting to how you want the new business processes to act. It has to be empowering, not limiting. And then lastly is quite about structure. And a lot of organizations are structured for traditional business. And traditional business, or business as usual types of events, as opposed to reorienting themselves for a continual transformation. And I know a lot of people will cringe, but the only thing that's going to stay constant here is change. Whatever digital transformation we do now, it's going to continue. So the structure of the organization needs to start mirroring that continual change, and it's happening fast.
Thank you, Greg. This next question I have to ask you is something that I run into quite a bit. With the Public Sector Technology Exchange, I talk to many, many leaders throughout government, and the reality is there's still a lot of legacy systems out there. Can you share for us, what's needed to make the transformation? If an organization is running on legacy platforms, how can they begin?
Great. So I'm going to apologize for the picture up front, because I always cringe at anything that becomes technical for these things. So I tried to make it a little fifth grade-ish and try to have a little bit of fun with it. I think the first biggest concept that we need to get across is, number one, it's a migration. And number two, when we look at what we're migrating to, it's about bringing things together. Things that you would have not naturally thought of as together. Again, I'll go back to the first speaker when they talked about, someone's on a mobile app, which is now connected to their website, which is now connected to when someone calls in. We need to start connecting that stuff together. So I labeled the first step as step one. The step one is kind of what we call a wrap and embrace type of approach. You take those legacy platforms, those legacy systems, I put those in orange there, with those kind of old analog phones and old systems, and you wrap and embrace it. Once you wrap and embrace it, the first problem that you're trying to solve is, how do I get out of my system much more effectively and start adapting for the new carriers, the new providers, the new services that they have with that kind of that session fabric type of layer. Then what we start doing is we need to start moving into the IP arena. One of the things you'll see very quickly with a lot of these new services and a lot of these digital transformation objectives require to be able to talk over flexible networks, meaning go over IP. The session fabric is a glue. It allows you to take kind of IP phones and next generation devices and be able to have that still work with your traditional systems. We then want to add on new functionality. That's what I represented in number 4 there, means that we can now do kind of an augmentation play. We can go at whatever rates that organizations are comfortable with of moving users off of legacy platforms onto a new type of service. And the great thing about this is this fits in with how all your next generation applications and services are working. And you can go at whatever investment rate, depreciation rate, risk rate you have. There's no turn our lights off on Friday, turn them on Saturday. We can then start adding mobile devices, integrate to your business applications, and then we can also kind of integrate your side systems. But I want to bring attention to close with this is 8 and 9. There's a world that we're living in now where we need to customize or personalize the experience. We've now introduced something called an application fabric, which again glues on top of the traditional and legacy systems, that allows new applications and services to be deployed without massive investments and upgrades and downtime. You can start off with very basic applications. I call those ringtone applications. You want to solve something and make something just a little bit better, you can deploy that now in days and weeks instead of months and years. And then you can evolve to the more complex, the more integrated applications, and you can communications enable that citizen engagement and your knowledge worker engagement transactions.
Thanks, Greg. I have a last question for you is, what are the consequences if you don't engage the customer or the citizen in the mobile world?
Well, I hope people don't cringe too much about this, but I think this is as pointed as I can get. Businesses will really, and organizations will really struggle if they haven't done kind of this disruption. And you can see this with digitally born companies disrupting traditional industries all over the place. Think about kind of that retail storefront And think about what Amazon did in terms of delivering a new type of shopping experience out to their consumers. Did every single brick and mortar business go out of business? No. But they really got impacted, strain on costs, reduced size, reduced focus, and the digital transformation that Amazon did to that industry, they kind of took it over for a while and continue to. Uber's a great example with public transportation. Look at how they disrupted the taxi industry. They started taking the mobile device and making that their storefront. They started incorporating contextual information of where a customer is, what they've done, what feedback they've provided. They put that into automated services, and now a car, in this case, can be delivered to you. How many people today still open up an encyclopedia if you want to search for something? That's pretty much gone. Google completely transformed that business. If you want to search for something, you go to Google and you search for it, and you can wade through that type of information. New ways to index, new ways to digitally transform even something as simple as research. And I don't know about a lot of people on this call. I don't even have a DVD player at my house anymore. You can get content delivered to you through many different mechanisms. Netflix is one of the leaders in streaming video. What I think the net message here is DVDs aren't gone in the world, research isn't gone, taxis aren't gone, brick and mortar businesses aren't gone, but they've gone through a tremendous amount of disruption when companies do take advantage of these new technologies and these new services and engage their customers and their citizens differently.
Thank you, Greg. Now I have some questions for Stu Davis. Stu, could you share with us how Ohio is currently engaging the citizen on the go?
I sure will. I'll give you a couple examples. As you can imagine, with a significant increase in the adoption of mobile devices, that mobile access has become an integral part of how we communicate, collaborate, and obtain support and services for the state and our citizens. So agencies have embraced this, and we have numerous agency mobile applications that engage our constituents and our citizens. One of those would be the Ohio Department of Transportation's OGO, OHGO, that allows users to view up-to-date information about ODOT, managed highways, traffic flows, major alerts on weather and road incidents across our Ohio roadways. And in addition to OGO, DOT developed a mobile application to provide access to the Ohio traffic cameras, so you can check traffic and road conditions on major highway intersections. Another mobile application is Taxation's Sales Tax Rate Finder. It's a mobile app that is a convenient resource for shoppers and shippers and service providers doing business in multiple locations across Ohio. And the application uses GPS technology to accurately identify the location where a taxable transaction occurs and the appropriate tax rate for that location. So those are just sort of a few of the examples where we're engaging with our constituents and our citizens and trying to get the information out to mobile devices so that they can access it from anywhere, anytime, anyplace.
Stu, your state has a mobile-first policy. Can you share with our audience what that mobile strategy is, as well as how is the state of Ohio leveraging mobile technology among its employees?
Sure, absolutely. So the mobile-first strategy was really put together to strongly encourage the consideration of mobility and all new applications in particular, with a focus on the user interface and the user experience. We also wanted to encourage them to look at some of their legacy systems and seeing if there was the ability to put a mobile wrapper on some of those kinds of things. And I'll speak to our ERP system for the employees here in a second. But the mobile first policy, what really we're talking about is asking agencies to adopt the mobile first strategy in the design and upgrade of applications and systems, design it with a customer service in mind, include the mobile first and all new applications and system specifications, and drive user access to mobile applications and portals so that we can get this information into the folks' hands quicker and make decisions faster. For the employees, we have our enterprise resource planning a system, which is we call the Ohio Administrative Knowledge System, which is called OAKS. And basically that allows for the employee to go in and look at their, complete their time card, be able to look at their paycheck coming up, and basically engage with things that are specific to the employees. And we're in the process now of putting a mobile front end to that so that folks can do that from a distance and from home or from wherever they may be sitting at any given time.
Okay. Stu, I have one other question for you. I recently had the opportunity to read the governor of your state, John Kasich, book, Stand for Something. And by the way, I highly recommend to anyone listening, it's an excellent book to read about how bipartisan can get things done in our country. In this book, your governor talks about how to impact, engage, and empower your community. Can you share with us what's the Ohio Business Gateway, how you're engaging with business, and what are the results so far?
Oh, sure. Not a problem. Actually pleased to talk about it. So one of the first things that Governor Kasich did was really create a common sense initiative that was run by the Lieutenant Governor. And the Lieutenant Governor really took new ideas and sort of streamlined the process. If we had old applications, old things that weren't really providing much value, they would go through a process and they would get rid of those and really start to focus on more information-centric, if you will, user-centric sort of approaches to things. And the Ohio Business Gateway has been around for a while, and it is a mission-critical application. And what it really does is provides Ohio businesses the opportunity to file and pay business taxes online. It offers businesses key information for conducting business with the state. I mean, that's really sort of the purpose of it. And the OBG's success can be defined by its use, to be quite honest with you. I think last year we collected over $9.5 billion in tax liabilities through the gateway.
Oh, wow.
We are in the process of sort of modernizing the gateway and making it more user-friendly, and really with that user experience in line and looking at the navigation of the mobile gateway, or I'm sorry, the OBG, the Ohio Business Gateway, and really beginning to interact with the stakeholders and finding out how they want to consume information, which was put together quite some time ago. The navigation's a little clunky anymore, and we wanted to go out and engage with the stakeholders and the business community and the tax practitioners and get their take on how we should be providing this information to make it easier for them to consume, easier for them to make sure that they've got the appropriate records on their side. And a big part of this modernization is how do we ensure that mobility is a part of that so that they can access anywhere from any device.
Thank you, Stu, for that. Folks, I have a few questions for John Spence, and while I'm going through this, start thinking about the questions you may have for our panelists. You can use your dashboard to submit those, and when I'm done talking with John, we're going to open it up to you, the audience, nationally, to ask your questions of these speakers. John, my first question for you is, when you think of government traditionally, you don't think of the liquor division, and I mean, you have the equivalent of a retail store that you run. You have 66 government-run stores, 103 contract stores. I think what I saw on your website last count is you do between 1,000 and 1,800 SKUs of spirits. And can you share with us the difference between your interaction with customers and the citizen, or are they both?
They can be both. That's where we have several levels of customer. We have our licensees, bars who basically buy from us, contract stores who sell for us, the consumer who buys out of our stores and the contract stores, but we also deal with the suppliers and brokers of the actual product themselves. So we have quite a bit of different types of customers to handle through this. And the citizen themselves, a lot of them are not even aware of how the system works, especially if they don't visit our stores. So we're really trying to get out there, and social media is one of the best ways to get knowledge out. So we're trying to get the knowledge because we're given through the Idaho statutes, Title 23, this ability to mandate the beverage alcohol and control it so we have a level of temperance. So our per capita of consumption is actually lower than some states. So we're really working on that, but there's also confusion because the licensing is handled through the alcohol beverage control, which is actually attached to the state police, and they enforce the liquor laws. See, we just sell the liquor, they enforce the law. So we try to get this information out to the citizen, and it can be challenging sometimes. What we're really trying to do, though, is find better ways to inform everybody on our services and, improve them any way we can.
Well, and that's a great lead into my next question. A year ago, your organization launched the website, www.mixblendenjoy.com. I encourage everyone listening in to take a look at that. My first question for you is, why did you go with a .com over a .gov site, and how is this website used right now to engage the mobile citizen?
Yeah, we decided that our .gov site, we were already using that to engage our brokers, suppliers, and licensees, and we were putting general information up there, but we decided that product information and a lot of the stuff you wanted to do to really push our brand would be better served on a .com. Most people don't seem to go to .govs, especially for retail type of things, so we thought it would be better suited to go to a .com instead. The brand Mix, Blend, Enjoy basically came from our retail side, and our uniforms match that, and they really want everything to kind of blend together.
I have a question for you, and I want the audience listening in. Look at some of these stats up on the right-hand side of your screen about John's operation. How is data currently reported from your stores versus contract stores? And one of the hard things, unlike other retail organizations, technically your CEO is the governor and your board is the legislator. So share with us also the process of working with the legislator to implement an IT project to engage the mobile citizen.
Yes, currently we have a private network. The state of Idaho is our ISP, our internet server provider, basically. So we have a private network that our stores are connected to, the state stores. So they report daily. We have a fairly modern point of sale system to where we can do everything at the end of the day, report it in, and process those sales. The contract stores, we have an older program that we install on a computer for them, and we're currently in development. We really didn't talk about this before, but we're currently in development about a web-based program that they can use anywhere, basically, for the contract stores to report their data. So we're really trying to upgrade the ability for people to report their data to us on a more regular basis. And dealing with the legislature and our governor as our CEO and board can be interesting because they do have a process that they have to go through for a state budget that most private companies might not have to deal with. Where we're on a fiscal year where our fiscal year is ending in June, so we have to have our budget in, and I could be researching this project all year basically, submit a budget, it has to wait that 12 months before I'd even get the money if it's approved. So it's tough sometimes dealing with these IT projects when you can be delayed by 12 to 18 months before you're actually able to start the project. And if you have multiple projects, implementing them can be, with the limited resources we have, can be time consuming and often pushes projects back a little bit. So they often listen to what we're saying with what we need to do our business. We have good returns, and our money goes back to the state, the general fund, the cities and counties. So the money we make, the revenue we make, really goes back to the citizens of Idaho, and we want to make people more aware of that. We want to make them, or not make them, we want them to be informed on what we're actually doing.
Thanks for that. John, I have one last question for you. How do you see engaging the mobile citizen in the future? Do you see using a tablet for your employees over a traditional point-of-sale cash register?
I've had this discussion with several people. We started to try to implement a kiosk in the store, and the argument kind of became, well, everybody comes in the store with a kiosk in their pocket, the smartphone. Do we really need to put a in-place thing where people can toy with, or do we put it on their own phone? And we decided to go with this website that's mobile-friendly, the Mix, Blend, Enjoy. And we hope in the near future, we're working on a project right now to where we could use mobile tablets, where our clerks could be out on the floor with the citizen, with the customer, and you would have all that information at your fingertips, and you could actually ring up their order for them right then and there, and we could engage them more on the floor than having them come back to the counter. And you might be able to to help the people find what they're really looking for instead of just processing through the system and get them out the door. We want people to know what they're actually buying and get them the product that they actually want and need. We also see, I saw this yesterday, we were remodeling a store and people were coming up to the door, but we were closed that day because it was a total tear-out remodel. And it's tough to engage people when we're doing these. So I thought social media, we really need to use social media to engage our customers so they know when we're doing remodels, when we're doing store moves. So that's something we're working on, but it's tough being a state agency. It's harder to use that type of technology as opposed to a private agency, I suppose.
Thanks, John. We're now to the part of the program where you, the audience, can ask our panelists questions. You can use your dashboard on the screen, and like I said, we have a national audience tuning in today to this webcast, and we've had many, many questions come in from all over the country. One of the questions, I'm going to just kind of steal the thunder here and ask the first question. Greg, one of the myths that's out there right now is that government is behind the private sector. You know, you hear this in certain circles, and could you comment on that? Because I know that you engage a great deal in the private sector. Could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing? Is that myth true, or is there some, is it founded? Please comment.
Well, I don't know about the word myth, but it's about a reality check for a second, and I like to use the analogy of building a house. If you were going to build a house in the 1900s, you'd have plumbing, you'd make great bedrooms and great, entranceways and the like, but you'd be really in trouble if someone came up to you and gave you a lamp, because you're kind of like, where do I plug this in? I don't have electricity. So someone went through the house and they retrofitted the house, and now it has electricity. And of course, if you built the house in the 1920s, you would have put electricity in. That would have been forethought, and you would have put that in place. But you would have been really in trouble if someone came and gave you a phone, because you had no place to plug it in. You had to retrofit the house again. Of course, if you built the house in the 1980s, you'd have phone lines everywhere. But then all of a sudden you wanted to plug in to see cable TV. Well, where do you get those wires from? And in today's world, obviously you build with cable. What happened to data networks? And, obviously the joke goes on and on and on. It's really easy to kind of pick a point in time and look backwards and say, I know I don't carry any baggage whatsoever. So what we refer to those companies right now are digitally born companies. The companies that aren't bringing along a lot of that luggage, that their business processes and their stuff doesn't. There are companies that have started up. Imagine setting up a service for customers where there is no phone number to ever call. It's not there. They have no desire. There's no expectations of it. When you compare yourself to digitally born companies, I think that's where that myth starts of, oh my goodness, we're so far behind. But if you kind of look at, some of the great innovation that we've heard about on this call and the like, it's taking steps forward. You can go at just the same speed as some of those larger organizations in the world. The trick at hand, though, is to make sure that each step that you're taking towards your overall vision, you're not compromising on your overall solution just to take that next step. A lot of people try to take those little steps, and then they're not able to kind of get everything together, and they always feel behind. But if you take the steps correctly towards your vision, but don't compromise on every step, then I think that you dispel that myth very quickly.
Thanks, Greg. Would anyone else on the panel like to comment on that question before I go to the next one coming in from audience? We had a question that came in, and and particularly with a lot of the things that have been in the news lately, one of our guests have asked us, can you discuss security issues with regard to mobile access? How do you control data leakage? Can I ask one of our panelists to answer that, please? So the question was, can you discuss security issues with regard to mobile access? Stu, could you take a crack at that one and how you begin to control data leakage?
Yeah, I apologize for that, Jim. I was trying to get my phone off mute, so
not a problem.
Well, all of these applications are very concerning from a security standpoint. So making sure that they're all patched and you have no control over some of that. So you really have to harden the back end and harden the application before you roll it out. So we have a pretty rigorous process that we go through on the state side in terms of access, even to the back end systems that would be interfacing with a mobile app in some cases. And that's really kind of where it starts. I mean, you just have to make sure that the security folks are in the middle, at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end of all of the application development lifecycle. I would suggest strongly you bring them in as early as possible to make sure that you're getting a hardened app out there. And I think some of that is really dependent on the type of information, of course, that you're having. Some of it being sensitive data, that means a lot different things, at least from a state perspective.
Thanks, Stu. Tony, John, or Greg, do you care to comment on the security question? Let me just read that one more time that came in, because we got several questions on this. But can you discuss the security issues with regard to mobile access? How do you control data leakage? Anyone else care to comment on that?
James, this is Tony. In Montana, we have an application, no matter if it's mobile or not, you have to develop a security plan as part of the proposal. So you have to identify, is there data that could be compromised in the application, and if so, what security measures are going to be in place to protect it. So that becomes part of every technology endeavor, application or mobile, is that security plan. How are you going to do the best job to protect that information?
Thank you, Tony. Before we move to the next question, John or Greg, did any of you want to comment on this, or if not, I'll go ahead.
I just want to add on one thing. Is you know, I agree with everything every other panelist just said there. It's also about kind of adding in new ways to start looking at your security plans. And what a lot of organizations and industries that are kind of leading the way is they're bringing in analytics into how they do security. So it's not, you know, even if you've identified somebody or what device they're on is a common device and the like, but when access is happening at awkward times, for example, if there are patterns emerging, those are types of analytical kind of security things that kind of a lot of the next generation security stuff is kind of going to be augmented with.
Thanks, Greg.
I would like to comment on that too. Yeah, on that note, we're trying to leverage too with our Department of Administration for the state of Idaho and utilize security measures for all agencies so they can have some really high-end security measures to cover the entire state, not just a single agency. So we hope to leverage them and then have our own security on top of that. So.
Thank you, John, for that. This next question has come in a couple different forms, so I'm going to try to put it all together. And I think this is a good one. And I believe that, you know, Stu, John, and Tony have touched on this a little bit, but maybe if we could give some more insight on this. The question that came in, it says, what are some practical, specific examples of how citizens have been engaged, and what is the value? Stu commented a little bit about what's going on in Ohio. John talked about what they're doing with the liquor division, and Tony, of course, showed us some disaster management machines. But I put the question out to our panel again, and if you could share with us, you know, specific examples of how citizens have been engaged and what were the results. And Tony, maybe you could share with us a little bit more details on what happened in Montana in lieu of you know, a bad storm, or how you've provided safety and some other things. Could you comment on that, on some of the results?
Well, for us, as you know, with us citizens, it's getting the word out there and trying to keep the information current and accurate. There's a constant use and feedback on our traveler website with people that if the information is inaccurate, we're going to hear about it. We've had motorists that have stayed at a hotel because somebody, for an extra day or two, because somebody inadvertently didn't update a traveler information over a weekend. That is a bad reputation for the state of Montana. So that's part of what we're looking at is, you know, ways how can we communicate that information, you know, get it out in a timely fashion, whether it's the website, a mobile app. We're looking at others. Can we engage citizens to report road conditions. So people that drive the road on a regular basis, is there a way that we can leverage them to then report back to us the conditions of that road that they're driving, so that we're not only relying on our drivers that are out there, but others to help us?
Thank you for that. We have time. We're just about, and I want to thank our audience, everyone that started with us is still there. We've got about 10 minutes left, and we have a few more questions, and we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can. The questions we're not able to answer, we'll certainly follow up with you after the event, but I want to talk about this next question that came in, and it's, bear with me just a moment. Bear with me a moment. I got it right here. What are the costs to upkeep mobility applications on the iPhone and Android? And we got this coming in. So, you know, I know like Ohio, you have the Ohio app, Montana, Idaho, several different apps. Can you share with us what are the costs that people need to be getting? You know, it's not for free. It takes a lot of work to do this. Could I ask our panel to comment on, again, what are the costs to keep up mobility applications on the iPhone and Android platforms? And Stu, would you mind just taking a crack at that question, please?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. A lot of these applications are coming out really from the agency perspective, and if you think about it, it's just another avenue to get access to information and to collect information. So I think it's really part and parcel of what their current job is. It's just sort of an interface or a drilling into from a mobile device that allows them. So we haven't seen, and I certainly haven't had anything fly up to my level that suggests that these are really onerous. I can tell you that back-end integration is it can be very complicated at times, depending on if it's a mobile app for an employee where they're collecting data in the field, if it's you push it in store. I mean, there are considerations that have to be made up front on those types of things. But if it's a legacy app and it's sort of mobilizing a website or something to that effect, we've seen these things come up fairly quickly and fairly inexpensively. Well, and
speaking of legacy systems, and Greg, if you could take a crack at this question. We had the question just come in: how would mobile collaboration? Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there. How would mobile collaboration solutions integrate with legacy systems in a cost-effective manner? I know Greg touched on that a little bit in his presentation. Greg, could you comment on that?
Sure. So the first thing I want to be really realistic about, and I know it sounds kind of like a joke, but if you have a traditional analog phone that's sitting on your desk, that is not going to be doing any video conferencing anytime soon. Which means is we really need to make sure that we set the right expectations of what we're going to integrate with. When we talk about that wrap and embrace model, the wrap and embrace model that we were talking about allows you to expose tremendous amount of services out to your mobile citizens. And what it also does is it normalizes it back for what your internal core services are. It allows you to plug in new applications, new services to kind of augment that mobile experience. But that wrapper is what's important. It helps normalize it to what the capabilities of your traditional platforms are. Where we also see people start evolving very quickly is once you put that platform in place, once you wrap and embrace it and give somebody and your users internally or your agents internally another place to get services, you start looking at different employees that need that advanced functionality to need to engage. You move them off of the legacy platform in groups, small groups that are manageable, to then have more advanced services. So for web collab, you talk co-browsing, to be able to share content, to do video if need be. The thing is you don't need to turn off everything at once and make a hard transition. Identify who needs that advanced functionality and have them work kind of in a peer ecosystem.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else on our panel care to comment on that question? And again, I'll just read it one more time before we go to the next question. But How would mobile collaboration solutions integrate with legacy systems in a cost-effective manner? Anyone else care to comment on that?
This is Stu. I'll take a stab at that, and I'll just give you sort of an example of what we found and piggyback really on what Greg is saying, and it really came through with the Ohio Business Gateway surveys that we sent out to the stakeholders to get their feedback. And what we found was the demographics were that folks over 50 were comfortable with a PC and they liked that sort of interface, but all the younger folks were looking at more of that mobility and that component. So to move them as groups, I think is and incrementally is, I think, a pretty smart move.
Can I give an example of something that's in the consumer space? I think this kind of would solidify.
Yeah, please do, Greg.
So there's a large financial company in New York that has a very interesting problem. They get 15 million calls a month at $2 a clip of people just calling in saying, I'd like to pay my credit card bill the same way I did last month. I mean, that's $30 million a month of people not wanting to or try anything else. So they gave kind of Avaya the challenge of how do you start how do I drive down my costs and increase my their customer satisfaction? So we integrated websites and ATM machines and text messaging and the ability to, when they go into a retail store, have that teller be educated. We used analytics to kind of help incite behaviors. If this is somebody's 20th time calling in, knowing we've spent $50 on this client, we'll give them, in this case commercial, we'll give them a $5 credit to try out the automated system. And the agents are enabled with co-browsing to help them become a little bit more digital. Of course, some people are still going to come through and want to still tell an agent, I want to pay my bill the same way. But they started noticing very, very quickly that a lot of other users, once they got exposed to this through these mechanisms, ended up not costing them, and their satisfaction started going up. So it's about bridging it, not trying to do it all at once.
Thanks, Greg. Any other comments on that question from the panel? Fantastic. To our audience listening in, we're just at the tip of the hour. We've got about 3 minutes left, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And again, thank you for joining us. I just want to take a moment to give a special thanks to our panelists. John, Tony, Greg, and Stu, you were excellent. I appreciate the insights you shared with our national audience today. I also want to give a special thanks to today's sponsor, Avaya, who made this event possible. I'm going to get ready to conclude the event. If you could take a moment to fill out your survey, we would appreciate it. On behalf of the Public Sector Technology Exchange, thank you for joining us today. Make it a great day. This concludes today's webinar.